special in Irvine, it's difficult for the Gaelic or Belfast. So I'm Linda Irvine and I'm the Irish Language Development Officer in East Belfast, and sometimes that quite surprises people, but it shouldn't, it really shouldn't, because if we knew our history, we wouldn't have an issue with the Irish language, and we also wouldn't let the Irish language be used against us, and that's one of the things I'm going to fill you in with today. I start with these books, and just want you to take notice of these because I got a lot of my information from these, not all of it, but a good lot of it. And when I read these, or I always say if I read them, well, actually I flicked through them and I went to the back and looked up the index and looked for Protestants and Presbyterians, and I was really shocked at what I discovered. You know, it was a real eye-opener for me because I have no background in the Irish language. I felt I had no links to the Irish language. And then when I read these books, I realised, well, actually that wasn't true. So I call the talk The Hidden History of Protestants in the Irish Language. And I call it a hidden history simply because it is a hidden history. People don't know, even though there are lots of books about it, there's a lot of information out there, the majority of people, both within the Unionist community and the Nationalist community, do not know the facts. We just do not know the facts. And these are the facts I'm going to tell you today. So we're going to start in the Belfast of 1911, and this is the Newton Arch Road, just a D Street there, and that's where I was born. I was born and brought up. I'm from Thistle Street originally, which is just on the interface there, there's no East Belfast at all, and I still live on the Newton Arch Road. And the reason we're going to the Belfast of 1911 is because of the census, and I don't know if you're aware that you can go on and search the census yet, and it's absolutely fascinating. This is where you go into, National Archives Census of Ireland. This is the little search engine you use. And basically that's what I was doing. About 4 years ago I was in the census and I was searching through for my family, and I was the third generation of my family that were born on Thistle Street on the Newton Arch Road. So I found my nanny in 1910 and she was not, she was 10 months old, you know. But after I got bored looking for all my family, I decided I'd look for my husband Brian's family. So we knew that they were living in Frome Street at that time, just across the street from, just across the road from where we live. We live on the other side of the Newton Arch Road. So I put in Irvine and I put in Frome Street, and this is what came up. This is Brian's grandfather John, his grandmother Mary, and his aunts and uncles, all Presbyterians. But what was more interesting is when we hit this box, the show all information box, this is what came up. Not only that my husband's grandfather worked in the shipyard, but they were all listed as having Irish and English. This is the actual form that they filled in. This is not an anomaly. We have actually now done research on people on the Newton Arch Road, and we have found about 500 odd people from the Protestant traditions listed as having Irish and English. Why is that? Because they came from parts of Ireland where Irish still was spoken. Tyrone especially, there's a lot of Irish still in Tyrone. Donegal obviously. The Spurns would have been a Gael top area if it hadn't been for the partition. You know, Irish was still there, so if you lived in an area where there was Irish, you would have a bit of Irish. This is McGowan Memorial Church, the Presbyterian Church on the Newton Arch Road, and this is the family church. This is the Roll of Honour, the front of the church for the men who fought in the First World War from the area. And they're the same men. This is Brian's grandfather and two of his uncles. They fought in the First World War. This is the Covenant document, and in the same place as the census you can go in and search the Covenant. And there they are again. They signed the Covenant. So here were men who probably built the Titanic.
These were the men of Tyrone, Londonderry, Monaghan and Cavan, down in Donegal, the men of Armagh, of Antrim and Fermanagh, who walked the bloody road to the sun.
Men who fought in the First World War, and men who signed the Covenant. And this wasn't my idea of what an Irish speaker was. This wasn't what I had been led to believe an Irish speaker was. And this is one of the things that interested me in the language and led me to discovering more. And made me feel very frustrated when I did find out the facts. And motivated me to want to share it with other people. Empower other people with the truth. How you feel about the Irish language, whether you're interested or not, is up to yourself. But I think it's good to know the truth. Gaelic is one of the oldest languages in Europe. It dates right back to the Bronze Age. It was a language spoken at one time in all of Ireland, Scotland, except the Shetland Islands. Shetland Islands were never Scottish, they were Norse. And there's a lot of Norse influences on the Gaelic in Scotland. Isle of Man is another Gaelic speaking region. People from Isle of Man were planted in Northern Ireland as well, around the coast of Down. Names like McQuaid and Crangle, they're all Gaelic names, they're all Isle of Man Gaelic names. Wales, Brittany and France, down here in Cornwall, and also parts of North England, all Gaelic speaking, all part of the Celtic languages. So for me, the Gaelic language is a language of the British Isles. It's not a language that divides us, it's actually a language that unites us as a people. There are 3 dialects of Irish within Ireland, 3 main dialects. There's the Ulster, the Connacht and the Munster, and this is where they still survive. These people still, their first language is Gaelic. Their second language is English. They learn English when they go to school. But at one time, it was all over the island. So it's the Ulster dialect that I'm learning. Now, if we're looking for the biggest Gaeltacht, the biggest Gaelic speaking region, well, we don't find it in Ireland. We find it in Scotland, where 80% of speakers are from the Protestant tradition. The darkest colours where you get the highest numbers of speakers. Bilingual Signage in Scotland, no political agenda. This is the Bilingual War Museum in Oban. This is the Bilingual Co-op in Oban. And this is exactly the same as the Bilingual Sainsbury's on the Falls Road. If you go up to Sainsbury's on the Falls Road, you see meat and you'll see fiol. Fiol is the Gaelic word for meat. Only this one says, we're proud that all our fresh beef, pork, chicken, turkey and duck is British. I don't think it says that on the one on the Falls Road. Now, one of the greatest joys I've had from learning the language is our place names, because 95% of our place names come from Gaelic. Some of them are from Scots, some of them are from English, some of them are English and Gaelic together, or Scots and Gaelic together. There's a lovely combination of them, but the majority of them come from Irish. Our own home city, do we know what it is in Irish? Anybody know? That's what it means. Anybody know?
Belfast.
Belfast, that's exactly right. Belfast. Bel means mouth, Farst means sandbank, and that's where the river Farst gets its name from. Farst, which means sandbank. So, Irish language place names mean something. They have a meaning. They tell you something about the lay of the land. When they became anglicised, we lost the meaning. We lost access to the meaning because the anglicised form doesn't mean anything. So Belfast doesn't mean anything, but Belfast means mouth of the sandbank. Sure we all recognise it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now when I go out, I always say to people, I don't think you could argue with me if I suggest that this is the most Protestant Unionist road in all of Northern Ireland. And sometimes people have argued and said, no it's not, we are here. But I would say that Shankill would be. But of course it's an Irish language place name, Shankill. Shankill. Do you know what that means?
Old church.
Old church. Shan is the word for old, kill is church. Kill is church. And there's no K in the Irish language. So that's why you have the C, and it's always a hard C, like cat. That's C, sorry. Shankill. Shankill. Now, Ballia means town or townland. Town or townland. And whenever the place names were anglicised, that became Bally. So, Ballyanything is an Irish language place name, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them all throughout Ireland, all throughout Scotland, and all throughout the Isle of Man. And they all mean town and townland, always, whatever the meaning is. So, for instance, Ballymena. The original name was and Ballyamanock, and that just means the middle town, Now I don't know where it's the middle between, but that's what it means, the middle town, and Ballyamanock. Does anybody recognise this over in East Belfast? Craigie Road. This is the Craigie Road, yeah. Now, how do you spell Craigie? Can anybody tell me how you spell Craigie?
C-R-A-G-H.
C-R-A-G-A-G-H. Does that spell Craigie?
It does,
It does, but it doesn't spell Craigie, sure it doesn't. It spells Craigie. And here are the troubles and things when you'd have heard, you know, and you still hear posh people or people on the TV and they'll talk about the Craigie Road. But we as locals, we don't recognise that because it's the Craigie Road. Now why do we do that? Why do we call it the Craigie Road? Because it's another Irish language place name. And Craigie. That's what it was called originally. Now, do you know what Craigie means? It means the rocky place. And if you go up the Craigie Road, where do you come to? The Rocky Road. So those places, those names tell us about our own land and our own environment. I'll give you another one, because my mum is from the top of the Crumlin Road, the bottom of the Laganey Road. And all my life, growing up, when I went up to my granny's house, I heard people talking about Laganey. And my mum is here, and I should say, yeah, I'm from Laganey. But people now call it Liganey, because that's how it's spelled. But that's not how locals talk about it. Locals call it Laganey. Why do they call it Laganey? Because it means the hollow of the willows. And do you know what the word for hollow is? Lag. There you go. That's everywhere all around. There's another place, is Tobermore. Okay? Now, local man had a go at me, he said to me, there's no such place as Tobermore here. It's Tobermore. He's local, and he's right. Because Tobermore is what it was originally called, and the word Tober means well, and more means big. So it's still in living memory. We're still living with these place names, but unfortunately, we've no access to them because we've no access to the language.
Linda, you see where you said ballet? Meaning, what was you said, Townland or something? Is that the same then, if anything, in Scotland was ballet then? So it's not in Irish, it's a Gaelic then?
It's Gaelic language.
Yeah.
Here,
so it's similar in Scotland?
If you're in Scotland, you call it Gaelic. If you're in the Isle of Man, you call it Manx. And if you're here, you call it Irish. It's just traditionally that's the way it's been. But the term is the Gaelic language. And if you speak in Irish, if I tell you in Irish that I'm a Gaelic speaker, I would say to Gaelic Adam. I wouldn't say to Ernak Adam.
It's all spelled the same no matter where you go.
Yeah, it's the same language. Because where did it come from? It came from here. And through the Kingdom of Dalriada, the language moved over to Scotland. And the culture moved over to Scotland and spread to the Isle of Man.
Or it may go the other way, as some people think. Or it may go the other way, as some people think. Came from Scotland to here.
No, definitely believe it went. We went from here to there. We went through the Kingdom of Dalriada. We populated. There was people already in Scotland, but we took language and culture from here to Scotland, and that spread over Scotland. So it did. I think there was Picts and things there, but the Gaelic language sort of took over and became the predominant culture of the time. In the same way that British culture has become the predominant culture throughout the British Isles now. I mean, that's how countries and, you know, that's always been, things change and, you know, but that's basically how it spread. So it's the same language, but then what happened was, as the same in English, different influences, very much in Scotland, the Norse influence. So the languages would be about 80% the same. You know, somebody who's an Irish speaker from here can speak to a Gaelic speaker in Scotland, but there's certain words that are different. For instance, if I wanted to say to somebody in Irish, how are you? I would say, oh, Jim or Tatu. If I wanted to say to them in Scots Gaelic, I'd say, Hamer or Hatu. If I wanted to say in good, I'd say, Hamigomai in Irish, but in Scottish would say, Hamigomai. You know? So there's wee things like that. Now, Rathcoole, a modern estate, but it's been given a much older name. Rathcoole. Rath is one of the words for fort. There's a number of different words for fort because there's different types of forts. Coola means kind of back. So all that is sort of back fort. But if you're up at Rathcoole, next time you're going that way, this is Church Road that runs down towards Abbey Centre. Look when you come past here, because this is Glasnabradan Glen, just beside Rathcoole, and that means the stream of the salmon. the stream of the salmon. Braddon is the word for salmon. So the glen of the stream of the salmon. Ballymacar Church in East Belfast, that's the church that I work for, East Belfast Mission as it is now. There's been a Churchill on that site, the Methodist Church on that site from 1826. Now, there's been a number of different churches built and rebuilt, and now we have the big Scanlon Centre, if anybody's been over there. So we had to knock down the original church, or not the original church, the most recent church. And there had originally been a graveyard which was blown up during the Second World War by Hitler and then very sensitively tarmacked over. So when we came to build the big Scanlon Centre, that old graveyard had to be dug up again, and there were actually some remains that had to be reinterred. But what the staff did, they did research on the people that were buried there, and this is one of the people who came up. He was a man called John Feely. John Feely was a horseback preacher, a Methodist horseback preacher, and they were people sent out by John Wesley to go around Ireland, England, Scotland, preaching and evangelising and converting people to Methodism. Now, what was interesting about John Feely and his more famous colleague, a man called Gideon Ousley, was that they were native Irish speakers. So they converted and evangelised through the medium of Irish. So there's a lot of people now who are Methodists. If they scratch back a few generations, they will find that their original family members were all native Irish speakers. Now, this man died in 1860 in Hollywood and was buried in our graveyard. And what was also interesting was, at that time when they would have went out evangelising and converting people, they had to wear these wee black hard hats because Methodists weren't very popular and people used to throw stones at them. I'm very glad to say, as somebody who works in the Methodist Church, that that has changed. People don't throw stones anymore.
Not yet.
Early in the day. Now, the language faced great decline, sort of from the 17th century onwards. But it was actually middle-class Belfast Protestants during the 19th century who first saw the value of the language. They started to get all the literature written down, and an awful lot of it, we only have it today because of them, otherwise it would have been lost. And this man in particular, a man called Robert McGowan, he played such a major role in the preservation of the language that the Irish Language Cultural Centre, and this is on the Falls Road, Cultural and McGowan Fayette, is called after him. And this is a very beautiful place, it's just at the top of Broadway there. It was originally a Presbyterian church. It was a Presbyterian church up until the 1980s. And the minister, who was the last minister, he still goes to Cultural Land regularly for tea and they attend a lot of the events. Their ethos is for everybody to be welcome. They have a good relations officer, fantastic wee girl, Aisling. And you know, I would take a lot of people over from East Belfast events over there, and they're always made very, very welcome. Douglas Hyde, Douglas Hyde, was the son of the Church of Ireland minister, and he founded the Gaelic League, known in Irish as Cumruna Gaelica, and it was an organisation set up to preserve and promote the Irish language. And back in 1905 in New York, he said, "The Irish language, thank God, is neither Protestant nor Catholic, it is neither a Unionist nor separatist. So it doesn't have a religious outlook and it doesn't have a political outlook." And that is the reality. That is the reality, and it's sad how our perception of the language has changed, because this is the fact, this is the truth. Now, the Belfast branch of the Gaelic League was set up in the heart of Loyalist East Belfast, and this is the Beers Bridge Road. And 120 years ago, this year in August, when we'll be celebrating it over in East Belfast, the Belfast branch of the Gaelic League was set up. But who supported the Gaelic League? Well, the Orange Order did. First Grand Master of the Independent Orange Order, Lindsay Crawford, he was a patron of the Gaelic League. Dr. Richard Rutledge Kane, he was County Grand Master of Belfast. He was the predecessor of Mr. Chillick, who's our County Grand Master at the minute. He was a member of the Gaelic League, he was a fluent speaker, and it's actually said that he used to sign the minutes of meetings in Gaelic. This is him, this is the man himself. This is a Portadown Lodge. And he said, "My Orangeism does not make me less proud to be an O'Callaghan. So me being an Orange man doesn't make me any less proud of being an Irish man." This is another famous Orange man. This is Canon John Crozier. And this is Hollywood's banner. And Gran and I were at the 1st of July march last year, and that came up the Beersbridge Road very proudly. Why is he on their banner? He's on their banner because he founded the lodge, the Hollywood Lodge. He was Grand Chaplain of the whole Orange Lodge of Ireland. He was a prominent Freemason, and he was also a member of the Gaelic League. And during the meeting of the Gaelic League, he actually seconded a motion that all children in Ireland should be taught Irish. So if he had got his way, I wouldn't be standing here. You've all been taught it at school. Wouldn't be a mystery to you. In 1896, he said that it's nothing less than a disgrace that people who love their country should know absolutely nothing of its language. And there we go. This is one of the Orange Order's Irish language banners. This one says Ireland's Own Heritage. So the stand now is an old one from a long time ago, and it was Sons of Ulster in Wales 759, Lab Jerry and Aaron, and they got me the photograph of this one, but they don't have a photograph of the other one. No, they're still looking for it, so it might turn up. They have a lot of not a lot of stuff in there, but a movement the minute they're letting out a lot of stuff. During the 1870s and the 1880s, they were able to tell me that they had these big orange soirees, more so in Belfast and country areas, and they'd have been round about the 5th of November when the English celebrated Guy Fawkes. And the normal thing would have had big banners around the walls that said Céad Míle Fáilte, 100,000 welcomes, Céad Míle Fáilte. That would have just been the normal thing. This is a story from the Orange Order. It ran first of all in the Orange Standard, which is the Orange Order's own newspaper, and then it was taken up by the Newsletter. And it's a story about Norman Henry. And Norman Henry is a member of a Donegal Lodge. He's a native of Donegal, and he's also an Irish speaker. So you could be an Irish man, an Irish speaker, and a proud member of the Orange Order. There's no contradiction. But who supports the Orange Order? Well, this organisation does. This is the Department of Community Equality and Gaelic Affairs. So that is the department in the south that supports the Gaelic-speaking regions of the south of Ireland. And back in 2008, they give the Orange Order almost €250,000, and that's to support the little lodges along the border that had taken a hit during the Troubles, and to try and support and build those up again. So the same organisation that supports the Gaelic-speaking regions also supports the Orange Order. Now, Belfast Newsletter is the oldest newspaper in the world, and this is a story from the 12th of July 1867, and it describes a band orange procession, so no change there unfortunately, that travelled from Bangor to Newton Arch. There's about 30,000 people, and the quote says, "Without interruption, save the Céad Míle Fáilte, the 100,000 welcomes of hosts of sympathisers." So here are people out welcoming the bands in Irish, shouting, Céad Míle Fáilte, Céad Míle Fáilte. It's flags now, it's Irish then. This is a souvenir of the West Belfast UVF colours presentation at Fernhill House, Glencairn, 1914. And I think Billy has this in his office.
No.
Was he not? I have a little picture of Billy just behind his head. I think his office that was. Somebody definitely has it in their office. Not sure if we find that.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I haven't seen it.
So if we look closely at it, it's an Irish. Lab Jerry and Aaron, Red Hand of Ireland. That is the motto of the O'Neills. And this is Nolachtar's Old Irish, and it means defiance. So there we go. Now, little booklet that was made in 1847, and it's songs and ballads for the use of Orange men. I'm going to let you hear a wee song. It's called The Protestant Voice. Now, I never knew the Protestant Voice, but my grandma used to sing a parody of it, which was the Old Orange Flute. I'm sure you've heard of the Old Orange Flute. And it's a song about a Protestant guy who plays in a band, who marries a Catholic girl, and whenever he takes the flute to Mass, it will only ever play the Protestant Voice, and they actually burn it at the stake, but it keeps playing the Protestant Voice. So I'm going to let you hear the Protestant Voice.
The Protestant boys are loyal. loyal and true, stout-hearted in battle and stout-handed too. The Protestant boys are true as of yore, and faithful and peaceful when danger is o'er. And though they bear and proudly wear the colours that flooded o'er many a fray, where cannons were flighting and sabres were clashing, the Protestant boys still carry the day.
Sometimes I do a lot of sort of cross-community groups, and you can always stop at Pearls because the theatre comes. Now, this was written by a minister, a Protestant minister from Lisburn, a man called Reverend Innes, but he didn't use his own name. He used a non-plume, he used his pen name. He called himself Lav Jerry, Red Hand. So I think that's interesting. A very famous song from Unionist tradition, Loyalist tradition, written by somebody with an Irish language name. Queen Victoria came to Belfast in 1849, and at that time Belfast was known as the Athens of the North. It was a very proud Unionist city. And this is Hyde Street, and these wooden arches were built for her welcome. And she wrote in her diary that her favourite motto, she fell in love with it, was written up all over Belfast: Céad Míle Fáilte, 100,000 welcomes. So there were Unionist people welcoming the British Queen with the Irish language. Céad Míle Fáilte. This is the Ulster Unionist Convention, first Ulster Unionist Convention in 1892, and this wooden structure was built where we now have Botanic Gardens to house 12,000 delegates. They met together in this specially constructed hall, and we can see here God Save the Queen, Victoria of course, beside Erin O'Brien, Ireland Forever. Erin O'Brien, because all of Ireland was under British rule at that time. So the first Ulster Unionist Convention with Irish language proudly on its walls.